Last month in Birmingham, in the UK, hundreds of Muslims protested at a local school when they found out the school was teaching their children about LGBTQ issues. Many of the parents said it was confusing their kids, it was offensive, or that some of their friends had already left the country because they didn't want their kids learning about these things. In furtherance of their protest, they withdrew hundreds of students from the school, and this would seem to have forced the school to end the LGBTQ curriculum. A lot of people understand there are nations in this world that criminalize homosexuality. Sometimes it's even punishable by death. Yet for some reason, you have a faction of individuals in the West who believe that this conservative religious community can intersect with the LGBTQ community. But as we've seen in Birmingham, it isn't always true. While it's true for the most part in the United States, we will still see more issues like this. Today, let's take a look at exactly what's going on with the school and the protest, and I want to go over some issues that countries have in terms of criminalizing homosexuality. But before we get started, follow me on Minds at minds.com/timcast. We're also setting up a distributed newsroom over on our Subverse page where you can get involved, share stories, and highlight information you think needs to see more light. If you want to support these videos, just share them on social media to help spread the message. The story is actually really complicated, and there are people making accusations in all directions, but we saw this a few days ago. Birmingham school stops LGBT lessons after parents protest. Now, I'll come back to this, but let's look at why this happened. Back in February, we saw this story from the Daily Mail. Education, not indoctrination. Muslim parents lead group of 300 in protest outside school gates against equality lessons on homosexuality and gender. They say more than 300 parents and children gathered outside of a primary school yesterday to protest against lessons on homosexuality and gender. Some Muslim demonstrators said they would rather leave the UK than allow their children to continue attending Parkfield Community School in Birmingham. Pupils were kept out of lessons for the first hour of the day. Some joined in with chants and held placards reading "Education, not indoctrination." One child carried a handwritten sign which said, "Let kids be kids." In this image posted by the Daily Mail, you can see what they say. Some Muslim demonstrators said they would rather leave the UK than allow their children to continue attending Parkfield Community School in Birmingham. Parkfield Community School has said it wants pupils to be accepting and to welcome anybody. In this image, you can see many different signs from this particularly religious community. "My child, my right," "My child, my choice," "Say no" to "No Outsiders program," "Stop now," "Respect and be respected." This is an image of protesters saying no to an LGBTQ curriculum. One sign says it's exploiting children's innocence. Another says, "Say no to undermining parental rights and authority." The protest comes amid a campaign against lessons on equality at the school, with parents in the predominantly Muslim area saying they promote homosexuality. Christian evangelists joined them to protest yesterday in a show of solidarity. Parents' anger is aimed at the school's assistant head, Andrew Moffat, who was behind the No Outsiders lessons. He created the scheme to teach children about the Equality Act and British values. Mr. Moffat, who is in a civil partnership, was made an MBE for services to equality and diversity in education in 2017. He is currently shortlisted for a World's Best Teacher Award. He resigned from a previous teaching post at another school after a row with Christian parents over lessons challenging homophobia, and is now facing even more vocal complaints from parents at Parkfield, where 98% of the 750 pupils are said to be from Islamic backgrounds. One protester, Mariam Ahmed, said, "What they are teaching is not right. They are too young. There are 9 parts of the act, and they only seem to be focusing on one, homosexuality, and that is wrong. They need to have an ethos which reflects the area. It's not just because we are Muslims. There are Christians here too. We don't have a vendetta against homosexuals, and we respect the act. We respect that Mr. Moffat is gay, and we are happy for him to teach." She said she would consider taking her daughter out of school full-time if the lessons continued, claiming children were being affected emotionally and psychologically. One father, whose 6-year-old daughter attends the school, said his wife wanted to leave the country rather than let her daughter attend the lessons. The man, who did not want to be named, said, "My daughter has been asking questions my wife did not know how to answer." The latest update from March 4th, Birmingham school stops LGBT lessons after parents protest. Hundreds of children withdrawn from Parkfield Community School for a day. The story says a primary school that taught pupils about homosexuality as part of a program to challenge homophobia has stopped the lessons after hundreds of children were withdrawn by parents in protest. Parkfield Community School in Saltley, Birmingham, has been the scene of weekly protests over the lessons, which parents claim are promoting gay and transgender lifestyles. In a letter to parents, the school said, "Up to the end of this term, we will not be delivering any No Outsiders lessons in our long-term year curriculum plan, as this half term has already been blocked for religious education. Equality assemblies will continue as normal, and our welcoming no outsiders ethos will be there for all. On Friday, about 600 Muslim children, aged between 4 and 11, were withdrawn from the school for the day, parents said. The school would not confirm the number. What we end up seeing here shouldn't be surprising to anybody who's followed Abrahamic religious protests in the past. In the US, for the longest time, it was the Christian community that opposed gay rights, that opposed gay marriage. So it's not surprising then to see another religious group of people protesting LGBT education, and in fact being joined by Christians. The reason that I think this is important is that there are people in the US and in the UK and other Western countries that are critical of Christianity when it comes to LGBT issues, but are very accepting of Muslims, or they would defend them or deny that Muslims actually hold very similar views to Christians. The reality is, Islam is an Abrahamic religion, not too dissimilar from Judaism or Christianity, and any conservative religious group will likely oppose LGBT issues. Thus, we are seeing this now. We went through this in the 90s and the 2000s with conservative Christians in the US, and we have gotten past this. In fact, many Republicans now are in favor of gay rights and gay marriage, and Trump even unfurled an LGBT flag at one of his events. But the reality is, in certain countries that adhere to Abrahamic religious values, they actually criminalize homosexuality. And so that means we have to be aware that if many people come from these countries, they will hold these more conservative views on LGBTQ issues. This article from outlife.org.uk says, which countries criminalize homosexuality? If you're lesbian or gay and traveling abroad, it's sensible to check the laws governing sex and sexuality in whichever country you're visiting. Dozens of countries still imprison LGBTQ+ people, and 9 still threaten the death penalty. We can see that there are many nations that will give you life in prison, some 20 years, 17, 15, and while they're not all necessarily Islamic, some of them are, some of them aren't, when it comes to countries that will put you to death for being LGBTQ+, they're all Muslim. We have Mauritania, for Muslim men only, Nigeria, in the northern states that approve Sharia law, in Sudan, in Qatar, Somalia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Yemen, and the Islamic State. There are absolutely modern Muslim communities that don't want to criminalize homosexuality, that respect the rights. But even then, when you have migrants who come to, say, the UK, while they're not going to be nearly as extreme as many of those countries, they still will be at odds with the LGBT community. So I'm not saying that they shouldn't be welcome or anything like of that. No, of course. And their protests are valid and they're allowed to speak and they have their rights. But I think it's important to point out that when it comes to the idea of intersectional feminism, some groups just don't work well with each other because they're at odds with each other. The LGBT community has every right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, as does the Muslim community. But as we can see here, when the school tries to teach young people about respect and equality, the religious communities, Christian and Muslim alike, are at odds with that, and that's likely to continue. It is important to point out, however, the story's been updated as of yesterday. Parkfield Community School LGBT protests. School denies U-turn. A school which has suspended lessons about LGBT rights and homophobia following protests from parents has denied the move as a U-turn. Parkfield Community School in Alum Rock, Birmingham, has seen protests over its No Outsiders project. It said it was always the plan for the classes to stop at half term, but it added, there is a need for discussions between teachers and parents about the curriculum and how it should be delivered in the future. A spokesperson for the school, which has about 740 pupils aged 3 to 11, told the BBC the No Outsiders program is still an integral part of its ethos. They said it was always in the curriculum plan to use the remainder of the term for religious education. Now, there is concern that they're just trying to save face, because it would seem that they're switching to a religious curriculum which may actually placate those who are protesting. So perhaps it wasn't in their plan, or maybe it was their official statement, this was always their plan, and they're not going to abandon LGBTQ lessons. I think the issue of sex education goes well beyond the Islamic community, and I don't want to highlight these stories to point the finger necessarily at them, but I do think it is important to point out that in many parts of the world, the countries that overwhelmingly criminalize homosexuality tend to be Islamic. Not all of them, but most of them, especially when it comes to the death penalty. You have to then recognize, as more migrants come to our communities, these views will come with them, and with that will come conservative ideology and opposition to LGBTQ rights. A problem then arises when we see the pushback, like this op-ed from The Guardian. Pupils shouldn't be denied LGBT lessons, whatever their parents say. And this is a key tenet of the protests, the parents saying it's their choice as to how they raise their children. But in this op-ed, they say, growing up gay and Muslim, I know I would have benefited. Parkfield School should continue its No Outsiders program. Many of these migrant families don't want their children to learn these things. And here we have an op-ed from someone saying it doesn't matter what their parents say, they should get these lessons. To me, that sounds like bigotry. It sounds like someone who refuses to accept the culture of migrants who are coming to the UK. And it presents a real problem. Which group is more deserving of protections and should be allowed to do what they want? Should the school be able to teach LGBTQ education in the face of what the religious Muslim and migrant community wants, or do the migrants have more say because they're migrants and their culture should be respected? Ultimately, one thing will end up happening. If you defy the rights of the migrants and the Muslim community, well, they're threatening to leave already. So again, to me, that sounds like bigotry. It sounds like you're refusing to accept their opinions and trying to force your culture on them, and it doesn't sound like you're too accepting of migrants. Therein lies the problem. Who is right and who is wrong and who should be supported? Let me know what you think in the comments below. We'll keep the conversation going. It's a complicated issue, but I hope this at least shines some light on the matter. You can follow me on Minds at Timcast. Stay tuned, new videos every day on this channel at 4 p.m. Eastern, and more videos coming up on my second channel, youtube.com/TimcastNews, starting at 6 p.m. Eastern. Thanks for hanging out. I will see you all next time.